Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This book came out in 1898. It is one of the oldest science fiction novels out there. It is a classic, and I picked this up a couple of years ago at the bookstore because I actually had a gift card that had like $6 on it, and this book is like $6 in mass market at the bookstore. One of the few mass markets you can get nowadays. And I was, interested in it because it's this classic story. Everybody knows the War of the Worlds with the alien invasion. Most people know about the history of, the adaptation, the radio adaptation that went awry, and people thought that it was the real thing happening. And so, this was a seminal piece of science fiction and has really been influential on a lot of modern day science fiction. Yet I'd never read the book, so I was like, why not pick up the book and give it a try, see how it is. So I read the book over the course. I read about half of it last night, half of it today. It's a very, very short read. And I was struck by a couple of things. One is, of course, it's really obvious where we've gotten a lot of these modern day science fiction tropes. And also, I'm just constantly reminded why classic writing styles just don't work for me. There is so let's talk about some of the tropes and stuff. This is an alien. It's about the Martians who land on Earth, end up having a war with humanity, particularly with Britain. They land in Britain first, which really it could be called the War of the Martians Attack Britain or something like that, because it's not, you don't really see the world. You just see it from this little part of Britain's perspective. That aside, you do get to see the science fiction elements in here. In like the first chapter is about the scientists noticing the like stuff in telescopes and them being like, hey, that looks strange, and them trying to warn people and nobody really taking it seriously. And then the second chapter is about the alien object lands on Earth, but people don't know what it is and they think it's just a meteor at first. Then you have a chapter where the alien object starts attacking the citizens, and they don't realize that it's actually like a scary thing, and so a bunch of people start dying. The ideas of the robots using like laser beams, basically, or as they're called in here, heat rays. And then of course you have some of the tropes about, aliens all suddenly dying at one point, and you have the tropes of humanity having to band together to fight back, but then some people are cowards, and then trying to spread the word on how to stop, like all these kinds of tropes that we see in science fiction and alien invasion fiction today is particularly present in this book. In fact, I was surprised when I was reading this how much it reminded me of Independence Day. And I'm like, that trope was from here, that trope was from here, that trope was from here. So I liked seeing all those tropes, particularly in the first half of the book, where I think it's pretty obvious where people got a lot of the tropes. And seeing H.G. Wells, try to write such a science fiction-y adventure when we didn't know much about Mars, we didn't know much, it's not like there was a lot of alien fiction previously. This actually, was an interesting read in that sense, and it's especially nice that it was such a short read because the writing style, of course, is very classic, and I understood what was happening, but it was so, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but it was so bland. Like, the story was happening, there was very little dialogue. If there was dialogue, it was exclusively for the story. Like, we don't even know the main character's name in the book, because he's a point of view character, and so he uses like, I did this, we did that, and nobody calls him by his name. And part of that's kind of cool because you get to, kind of insert yourself into his perspective. But at the same time, it's just like, it didn't feel like there was character stuff. It's purely plot, which I'm usually a very much plot-driven reader. I'm a plot and story, so like normally this should work for me. But the characters, it just felt so much like we're just telling the story. The characters just happen to be there, and so the writing style, like it's hard to put to words, but I didn't hate it. I just thought it was not my most favorite. But I did enjoy the process of the book. I really liked the last chapter where our main character is reunited with someone. I thought that that was really written well. Was really sweet. I also did like some of the philosophical stuff in the book. I think that perhaps the in this version there's like an introduction and an afterword, and I think Isaac Asimov wrote the afterword, and I think he generally gets everything in the afterword correct. I think that everything he said is like, yeah, he was pretty dead on. But the guy in the introduction, let me see who wrote the introduction for this. It was Carl Kroeber. Carl Kroeber is making all these assumptions about what H.G. Wells is trying to tell with the story, and maybe H.G. Wells was trying to tell that, but a lot of these story decisions seem like, hey, he's just trying to tell an interesting story with that, and maybe he's a much deeper writer than I'm thinking, but I just felt like, yeah, he's just telling that's how the story unfolds. So I enjoyed this book in the sense of it's a classic. I now completed it. I now understand the references. I understand the tropes. I respect what the book did, especially for the book's time. And reading it as this like artifact of science fiction literature really is intriguing to me. But if I'm talking about enjoyable reading experiences, if I'm talking about favorite novels, novels that impacted me with themes that I connected with stories that I particularly connected with, this is not a top tier book or anything. I'm glad I read it. It has value. It is certainly worth the discussion around the book, but it is not an all-timer for me. So I'm going to give The War of the Worlds a 7 out of 10. Entertaining, but it's not a top tier novel necessarily. But hey, it's a classic that I actually enjoyed. That doesn't happen that often. So I'm not a big classics fan, so I did enjoy it overall. So yeah, that's War of the Worlds, The War of the Worlds, which by the way, real quick side note, trying to find this edition on Goodreads is an absolute nightmare. There's like 5,000 editions of this book, and I was just scrolling for minutes and minutes and minutes, and finally I just gave up because I'm not sure. So the edition I'm picking on Goodreads is just one that has the same number of pages as this because I cannot find this specific one. But yeah, so that is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. I do want to read other H.G. Wells. I'm intrigued by The Time Machine, the Dr. Moreau book. I'm interested by some of his other books. So I am interested to read more H.G. Wells, and this is my first. So let me know what you think of The War of the Worlds in the comments section. What science fiction books do you think it directly influenced? Do you agree with me that it really influenced Independence Day? And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.